Please welcome to the stage Naval Ravikant in conversation with Louise Tabbiner.
Okay. Good evening again. Sorry to interrupt the food. So I have to say that I did not think it was going to be during Mike and Khaldoon's conversation when we talked about beards and reincarnation. I thought maybe that would be reserved for a little later in the program. And I mean, I'm no expert on reincarnation, but I thought you kind of wanted to do a good job in your life, so you came back as something better. And did Mike say he wanted to come back as the head of a utility company? I mean, yeah. What if you were to be reincarnated? What would you want to be? You told me a butterfly. That was the first thing that came to your mind.
Randomly, no. I mean, obviously, I think if you go through the reincarnation history, and I'm sure Sadhguru can tell us a lot more about that. It's much more about you're supposed to pay off your karmic debts, you're supposed to learn something, and eventually you get to the point where maybe you're fed up with the world and you don't come back anymore, and then you're done, sort of the enlightened state.
So that's the utility, the head of the utility is right before you get to that point?
Right before you reach enlightenment, you become a utility company CEO. So for those of you who are running utility companies, congratulations.
Okay, well, anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. Naval, the co-founder of AngelList, prominent investor, you've significantly shaped the startup scene in Silicon Valley, and so I think many of us here would love an update. What's the pulse in Silicon Valley right now? What's keeping people up at night? What are people excited about? What's going on with AI? Are we all going to die?
Don't believe everything you read on the news or on Twitter or now X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. People would have you believe that, for example, San Francisco is dying as a city, and there's some truth to that in some parts of it, and people would have you believe that AI is going to take over everything, and again, there's some truth to that. But the reality is San Francisco is very dynamic right now. It's become a startup town again. A lot of the bigger companies have moved out, so you don't see Facebook and Google and Twitter expanding in San Francisco, but that creates space. A lot of young hackers, a lot of young entrepreneurs. I would say the scene is more dynamic, more high energy, more conducive to early stage startups than I may have ever seen. But at least certainly going back to 2005, 2007, I think we're in a period where there's going to be a Cambrian explosion of good startups coming out of this. There will be the hype cycle of AI. There will be a crash. There sort of always is. As far as AI goes, AI is just one of many frontier technologies that I think are starting to break out. For example, in biohacking, you're finally seeing things like peptides come out. I think with Elon Musk doing what he did with Tesla and SpaceX and Neuralink, that's inspired a generation of entrepreneurs. So people are building chips and semiconductors again. People are trying to do fundamental breakthroughs. A lot going on in robotics. Self-driving cars. If you're living in San Francisco, you are living in the future. Waymo, the Google Alphabet spin-out that does self-driving, is actually starting to work. I've taken a couple of Waymos and I've gone from being kind of cautiously skeptical to being very optimistic about the future of autonomous vehicles. They're really good. They work extremely well. And once you're in a car and there's nobody else there, you realize that you can just live your life as normal. You can continue the conversation with the person you're with. You can stay on your Zoom call. You can relax and take a break. So the world is changing very, very fast. And by being in SF right now, or Silicon Valley, you get to live just a couple of years in the future. But that's everything. In an era where you're trying to find scarce returns, 3 years forward is everything. So I think it's alive and well. And I can get into AI doomerism if you want.
Okay, maybe not. Sort of. I mean, I've heard you say this before, but Silicon Valley doesn't create these founders, doesn't create the entrepreneurs. It attracts them. And over the last few days, I've been speaking with Mike at a number of events, as you can imagine, about 200 in the last 3 days, but in 3 countries. But we've been talking about the fact that 77% of all the leading U.S. AI companies have been started by immigrants or children of immigrants. And 70% of all of those studying higher AI at university or PhD level are international students. So what is the makeup in Silicon Valley today if so many of these founders are from abroad? Is that changing? So that's part one to that question. And part two, you have always said that choosing where you live is one of the most important decisions you make in your life. And so when these young founders, and some of whom are in this room, are thinking about where to live, and when there's so many opportunities in countries like this right now, what is still this draw to Silicon Valley? Is it still as important to be there?
Yeah, unfortunately it is. It's still very much a local game. There's a lot of serendipity with who you run into. And so there is a network effect underway. Silicon Valley became the place where tech was born and coalesced in the United States. United States at the time, and still is to some extent, the global empire. It's the leader of the so-called free world. And so when the tech industry was born, you could argue there were lots of reasons why it ended up in Silicon Valley. You could argue it was because of the university system. You could say it was because of William Shockley. You could say it was because of a couple of semiconductor companies, military research. Really, I would just say it's the weather, honestly. Because believe it or not, the single biggest input into tech is smart people. And these are the highest earning, most intelligent people in the world, so they can live wherever they want to. So they identified a Mediterranean city on the coastline of the United States that wasn't already occupied like Hollywood was, and they sort of took it over. And they like being there because it's always been a creative center. The weather is actually really good. The outdoors are beautiful. The food is great. You're right next to Napa, and it's just a marvelous place to live.
What about the safety and the homelessness and some of these issues?
It's like any other city where if you pick a certain neighborhood in Chicago or you pick a certain neighborhood in New York, you can find anything you want. And so San Francisco is very much the same way, except there's a dividing line that runs down the city. If you're in a certain part of it, it's not going to be so pretty, and there's a certain part of it that is among the nicest places to live in the world. There's no way that the richest, most intelligent people in the world are living in squalor. That's a myth. Right. Like you're looking at it through Twitter, and again, you're getting diluted by sort of this filter bubble that comes at you. So
this is the American dream, and we talk a lot about the American dream at the Milken Institute. Does that still exist in the same way in the United States?
Well, yeah, to get to the point of like, why do they go there? They go there because that's where all the other smart people are. And if you want to create wealth, if you want to change the world, either one of those, it's a byproduct of knowledge. You have to create new knowledge. And that's going to happen when you're around all the other really intelligent people. So if you go back through human history, at any given time when there was a revolution going on, there was an intellectual revolution going on, whether it was industrial revolution, they were all in Manchester or London, or if it was during the Greek times in the city-states, they were all in Athens. The same way, now the information age revolution is going on. You want to be where all the other people are. They tend to gather in one place.
And why are so many of them leaving then?
Leaving where?
Leaving California.
They're not. They're going back. That's a myth. That is an absolute myth. If you're on the ground, they're all coming back. Miami, 80% of them have come back. Really? The only place you could argue where they have moved to is some of them went to New York. Mm-hmm. And the crypto industry has largely been forced out due to heavy-handed regulations. And I think a lot of biomedical innovation is also being forced out because of heavy-handed regulations. Not new ones, but ones that are kind of holding back biomedical research. In fact, Dubai is becoming a hot spot for that, I would argue. Mm-hmm. So I think there are certain regulatory factors where they get pushed out. But if they're not being actively pushed out, they are still in Silicon Valley.
And do you think the role and responsibility of founders has changed, especially as founders become celebrities, it seems? And
I don't think the good ones do, not until they're successful. If you're ending up in Forbes 30 under 30 or on the cover of magazines, that's not conducive to being a good founder. All the value comes from a few hundred genuine, brilliant tinkerers who are there for the love of the game. They're there for the love of the craft. They're there because they're creating something that they want to see exist. I genuinely believe Elon when he says he wants to die on Mars. And so these kinds of people, Ilya Sutskever, the genius behind OpenAI, and Greg Brockman and others, obviously, and Sam Altman, but these are people who have been working at the edge of their knowledge to try to figure out something new for decades. They are not there to be famous. Fame is a byproduct, and honestly, anyone who's on this stage, like me, talking about something like that, you shouldn't trust 100%. We're not the real deal. The real power, the real knowledge, the real wealth, the real creativity derives from a small number of modern, you could call them scientist inventors, the new Thomas Edisons, the Henry Fords, the Nikolai Teslas.
And who are they?
Who are the new ones?
Yeah.
I mean, they're people you've never heard of. They're that geeky kid standing in the corner at the AI hackathon, who's shipping something that you can barely even understand or describe. You can find a lot of them on Twitter, but good luck sorting out the wheat from the chaff. But by the time they're known and they're famous, then maybe like Elon, they still have ambition and they still keep driving, but they're not the true builders underneath.
So give us some of you've invested in over 100 startups. I mean, how many unicorns? Like what with your understanding of the founder community, give us some exciting ideas of where you would be looking to invest today.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to look at themes and ideas. You have to look at each person as an individual, because each person, when they come to you, they have kind of a secret view of the world, and they have some knowledge around it. And you have to figure out, is that secret true? By the time it becomes an industry, by the time it becomes a thing called AI that everybody's chasing, or a thing called self-driving cars that everybody's chasing, it's already a little late in the game, at least from where I play. Where I play is seed stage, early stage startups. And that's, to me, the excitement is in the creation and the discovery of inventing the new market. That said, where would people be looking? Obviously, in AI, there's a lot going on right now. But AI changes entire other fields. So for example, people think of AI as going to end the world, it's going to be AGI. It's none of that. This is it's actually a very simple thing that's been overhyped, but it's brilliant. It is taking all this data that's on the internet and all this incredible compute power that we have in GPUs to build true supercomputers of a scale we've never seen, and combining that with all of human knowledge to extract correlations, and it creates a dawn of what I would call natural language computing. Finally, you can talk to a computer like you could talk to a human, and the computer can talk back to you. And the computer can deal with unstructured data. It doesn't have to go into SQL databases and queries and pull up lots of details. It can actually just look at unstructured data and make sense out of it. So this is fantastic. It means a user interface goes from typing to picking at a screen to eventually just talking to it like your friend. And so AI agents are going to be real. Are these things going to take over and go Terminator style? No, they're not actually intelligent. They're just interpolating between existing data. They aren't creating new knowledge. And there's no evidence, I think, for anyone who really looks at it, although there are very smart people who disagree with me, that these things are going to become sentient and start improving themselves. That is not how intelligence works.
So nothing to fear.
No. And look, we don't know how to program an AGI. We're just thinking we'll throw more and more compute at it and that'll happen. There's no evidence of that.
Does everyone know what AGI is?
AGI is artificial general intelligence, and then they create another one called ASI, artificial superintelligence, where it starts improving itself. Again, there's no reason to believe that's true. But I think what we are going to see is now these AI improvements are going into other fields. So robotics suddenly becomes viable. Before if you had to put even a little robot that was serving drinks here or something, it would have an incredibly hard time trying to map this room. It would be a nearly impossible problem. Lots of cameras, sensors, algorithms, lots of code. Now you just basically run it through enough of these rooms, enough cameras, and eventually starts piloting itself. And that's what Elon is hoping the Tesla fleet is going to do. Those cars are going to self-drive just based on all the data that they have from the human drivers. So robotics suddenly becomes much more feasible as a field because of AI.
And can you give us any insight into what's going on at OpenAI?
Oh, you mean with the whole boardroom drama?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that, I don't have any special insight. I think that a lot of that came from the nonprofit to for-profit transition. And the people who are running the nonprofit, I think, were perhaps a little more scared of what they were building, as well as they wanted to keep it very non-profity. But at some point when you raise $10 billion from Microsoft and you're out trying to raise a lot more, and these things cost a lot of compute power, it's become a for-profit entity. So I think there was some tussle over that, and there's probably some tussle over how fast to move and what to release and what other business to go into. But I think that's a sideshow. That's human drama. It's kind of entertaining, but it doesn't take away from what's actually going on underneath, which is a big deal. The creation of natural language computing is at least as big of a deal as the creation of mobile phones or the creation of graphical user interfaces. But that doesn't mean it's going to end the world. I wouldn't worry about that. I think it's just like the calculator made mathematics a lot easier, and computers made mathematics a lot easier. Now computers are going to make all the verbal stuff a lot easier.
Right. Okay, so maybe leading into Sadhguru as our next conversation, we'll shift the conversation a little bit to life, happiness. You told me that health, the people you love, and what is your mission in life, right? Those are the three things that you should focus on. So what is your mission in life?
What is my mission in life?
Yeah.
It's one of those things you can kind of connect the dots on when you look backwards. Be very honest, early on my mission in life was just to make money.
Right.
And then after a while, it became more like, okay, have fun, do things that you enjoy. And now I realize as I get older, like, the only thing that matters is, and this is a big word, loaded word, it means a lot to people, it's just truth. Like, what's real?
Well,
what's true?
truth. If you email Naval, you get a bounce back immediately that says, thank you for emailing me. I will not respond to this email. You do not need to text me because I will also not respond. Someone will monitor this inbox and I'll get back to you if I should. And to me, that's a life goal. I don't know. I mean, is this just a no? Yeah, right?
Well, I mean, I think I was with a friend and he once said to me, he said, my definition of freedom is not having to be in a given place at a given time. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, I really want that. And then I also read somewhere, Mark Andreessen wrote a great blog post on, like, don't keep a schedule, although he keeps a schedule. And then Jack Dorsey famously works entirely from his phone. He never gets on his laptop. So I kind of combined all of those and intersected those. And I basically deleted calendars out of my life. I deleted email out of my life and text messages occasionally. Wow. So, to have the kind of freedom that, frankly, a homeless person or a fisherman would have. Right? Yeah. So I don't think it's like a massive aspiration. I think it's just saying, like, hey, if you got what you want out of life, then why can't you get your freedom back? Why do you still have to, wear a tie and wear dress shoes? And by the way, I wish someone had given me the memo on sneakers. I had to pull these out of the closet.
You could have been cooler. Yeah. So I guess on a final note, when I asked you if you would carry on to interview Sadhguru, you said, something my mom will understand and finally be proud of me for.
Yeah,
and so tell us about that.
Oh, moms are always proud of you. That's the beauty of moms.
Yeah, but she won't understand
they're
the
always
fear
in your
of,
corner. Even if they don't know what you're doing, they're always in your corner. You could be spraying for cockroaches, but mom's always in your corner. That's the beauty of mom. But yeah, she's a fan. Obviously, I think as all of us get older in life, we realize that we don't want to spend time on temporary things. We want to spend time on timeless things. And what is timeless wisdom, and who in real modern life really shows that timeless wisdom or lives that timeless wisdom. And obviously Sadhguru is one of those people. And so I think a lot of people look up to him, including my mom. So therefore, so do I.
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you, Naval, for your time. And Sadhguru, the yogi, the mystic, the visionary, we'll ask you to join the stage and I think play a brief video about some of your work.